if you are over 60 years old, or if your mother, your father, your grandparents still get behind the wheel every single day, what I am about to tell you could be the difference between them keeping their independence or losing it overnight. Because right now, across state after state in America, the rules for senior drivers are quietly getting stricter. Not one rule, not two, several. And most families find out the hard way at the DMV counter when a license renewal that should have taken 10 minutes suddenly gets denied. Stay with me for the next few minutes because I am going to walk you through what's changing, why it's changing, and the one rule buried in the middle of this list that has already taken licenses away from drivers who did absolutely nothing wrong except get older. And if you have an aging parent, or if you yourself are approaching 65, 70, 80, please don't skip this. Someone's independence might depend on it. Before we go further, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. I put out videos every week that help families protect the people they love, from scams, from red tape, from the small print that nobody explains to you until it's too late. Subscribing costs you nothing, but it means you won't miss the next warning when it matters most. Now, let's get into it. Here is something most people don't realize. Driving is not regulated by the federal government in the United States. There is no single national law. Each state's Department of Motor Vehicles sets its own age-related rules, and that is exactly why so many seniors get blindsided. What applies to your neighbor in Florida might not apply to your uncle in Ohio. What was true 5 years ago in your own state might already be different today. So the confusion is not your fault. The system is built in a way that makes it very easy to fall behind on the rules, and very expensive emotionally and financially when you do. Let's talk about the first thing changing for senior drivers. Vision testing is getting tougher, and it's happening more often. For decades, a lot of states let drivers renew by mail. No questions asked, no matter their age. That window is closing. More and more states are requiring in-person vision screenings once a driver crosses a certain age threshold, often somewhere between 65 and 80, depending on where you live. And it's not just, can you read the eye chart? Some states are now screening peripheral vision. Your ability to notice a car coming from the side, a pedestrian stepping off a curb, a cyclist in your blind spot. Peripheral vision naturally narrows with age, often without a person even realizing it's happening. So a driver can feel perfectly confident, feel like nothing has changed, and still fail this test. Imagine a 78-year-old man who has driven for 60 years without a single accident, walking into the DMV expecting a formality, and walking out with a restricted license instead. That is happening right now in real DMV offices to real families. The second change. Renewal cycles are shrinking for older drivers. When you're younger, you might renew your license every 8 or 10 years without thinking twice about it. But once you cross into senior age brackets in many states, that renewal window shrinks, sometimes to 4 years, sometimes to 2. On the surface, this sounds like a small bureaucratic detail, but think about what it actually means for a family. It means more frequent trips to the DMV, more frequent testing, more frequent chances for something to go wrong, a paperwork error, a missed deadline, a doctor's note that didn't arrive in time. For someone who lives alone, who doesn't have a son or daughter checking their mail every week, a shortened renewal cycle can mean their license lapses without them even realizing it, simply because a letter got missed or a deadline snuck up on them. And once a license lapses, getting it reinstated is not always simple. It can mean retesting from scratch. The third change, and this one catches almost everyone off guard. In-person renewal is becoming mandatory, even for people who have renewed online for years. A lot of seniors got used to renewing online during the pandemic years. It became the norm. Click a few buttons, pay a fee, done. But that convenience is being rolled back specifically for older age brackets. States are now requiring seniors to show up physically. Not because they're trying to be difficult, but because online renewal can't catch the things that matter most. Whether someone's reflexes have slowed, whether their hearing has changed, whether they seem confused or disoriented in a way a form can't capture, which sounds reasonable on paper. But now picture a woman in her 80s who no longer drives long distances, whose daughter lives 2 states away, who suddenly has to arrange a ride to a DMV office that might be 40 minutes from her home during business hours, possibly waiting in line for hours. For someone with limited mobility, that alone can feel like a punishment for simply growing older. The fourth change: some states are now requiring a doctor's medical clearance for license renewal past a certain age. And this is where things start to feel very personal, very fast. This isn't universal yet, but it's expanding. Certain states now require seniors, especially those with a documented health condition like diabetes, a heart condition, or a history of seizures, to submit a physician statement confirming they are medically fit to drive before their license can be renewed. On one hand, you can understand the intention. Public safety matters. Nobody wants a medical emergency behind the wheel to put other people at risk. But on the other hand, think about what this asks of a senior. It asks them to sit across from their own doctor and essentially prove they still deserve independence. For some people, that conversation is humbling. For others, it's terrifying because they know their doctor might say no. And once a doctor puts something in writing, there is often no appeal, no second opinion that the DMV will accept. One signature can end decades of independence. And now, the fifth rule, the one I told you about at the start, the one that has already taken licenses away from drivers who never did anything wrong. It's called mandatory road retesting, and it is spreading fast. Here is how it works in the states that have adopted it. Once you cross a certain age, commonly somewhere around 75 to 80, though it varies, you are no longer allowed to simply renew your license on paperwork and a vision check alone. You have to get back behind the wheel with an examiner sitting beside you and actively prove that you can still drive to today's standard. Merging on a highway, parallel parking, reacting to a pedestrian stepping out unexpectedly. The same test, essentially, that a 16-year-old takes for the very first time. Now sit with that for a second. A person who has driven safely for 50, 60 years, who has never caused an accident, who has driven their kids to school, driven their spouse to chemotherapy appointments, driven themselves to church every Sunday for 3 decades, and now, because of a birthday, they are told, prove it, like you've never done this before. And here is the part that makes this rule so much harder than the others. Nerves change how people perform. Anyone who has ever taken a test knows this. You can be completely capable and still freeze up under evaluation pressure, especially with an examiner writing notes beside you. Especially when you know that this test decides something as big as your freedom to leave your own house whenever you want. Driving examiners report again and again that some of the safest, most experienced senior drivers fail this retest, not because they can't drive, but because the pressure of being tested undoes them. And once you fail, in most states, that's it. Your license is downgraded, restricted, or in some cases, revoked entirely on the spot. Think about what that actually costs someone. It's not just about cars. It's about the ability to go to the grocery store without asking someone for a favor. It's about visiting a spouse's grave whenever they want to without needing a ride. It's about staying in their own home instead of moving in with their kids because they can no longer get anywhere on their own. For a lot of seniors, their license isn't just a piece of plastic. It is their independence. It's their dignity. And this one rule, more than any of the others, is the one quietly taking that away, state by state, one road test at a time. So what can you actually do with all of this? First, and I cannot stress this enough, do not assume you know your state's current rules just because you knew them 5 years ago or because a friend told you what happened in their state. Every state's DMV website has a section specifically for senior or renewing drivers. Look it up directly for your own state this month, not last year. Second, if you have a parent or grandparent who is approaching one of these age thresholds, have the conversation now before a letter shows up demanding a road test they weren't expecting. Practice with them, drive with them, and gently, respectfully, let them show you how they're doing. Not to take anything away from them, but so nobody is blindsided. Third, if a medical clearance is required in your state, don't wait until the deadline is a week away. Book that doctor's appointment early. Give yourself room for a second opinion if you need one. And fourth, Talk to your family about what the backup plan looks like if a license ever does get restricted or taken away. Not because it will definitely happen, but because having that conversation before a crisis is so much kinder than having it during one. I know this video covered a lot, and some of it probably felt heavy. That's because it is heavy. This isn't really about paperwork. It's about the people we love and how much of their world can hinge on a form, a test, a signature. If this helped you, or if it made you think of someone in your own life who needs to see it, do me a favor, subscribe, and share this with them today, not next week. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update when your state's rules shift again, because they will keep shifting. And if you want, tell me in the comments which state you're in. I read every single one, and it helps me know what to dig into next for you. Take care of the people who taught you how to drive in the first place. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is pay attention before they have to ask for help. I'll see you in the next one.